In this week's podcast, we're going to talk with Wesley True. He is a owner and chef in Cleveland, Tennessee, and he also describes himself as a tinkerer and gear lover. So let's join in with Wesley here as we listen to his story. And if you are new here, be sure to subscribe down below. So here we go, guys. This is the interview with Wesley True. So your last name is True.
Yeah, my name is Wesley Conway True, and born in Mobile, Alabama. Now live in Cleveland, Tennessee. So why is it Wesley Conway on Facebook? So I was on. So when I did Top Chef, I got off of that, and Top Chef, you familiar with that? It's a cooking show on Bravo, and I got off that show, and I had a PR lady at the time, and she told me to start a fan page. And then she ended up not doing a great job. So now I have a Wesley Conway. That was my personal page and the fan page she never did anything with. And anyway, that's my Facebook now. Yeah, so whatever.
Bummer.
Well, she got me one paid gig. No, she was supposed to get me paid gigs. And the only gig she got me, I actually got the gig and had to give her $500 of it.
Well, that sounds about how most gigs go sometimes.
Yeah, man. So yeah, been in, I guess, music probably 20 years, but I've never really taken it seriously up until about a year ago. I mean, the only reason I played guitar a little bit in college, just enough for, I could play like one song and sing. Actually can sing pretty well. My brother did like musical theater and did Broadway and stuff like that, so it's in the family. But I played guitar and sang just enough to be able to, talk to a girl in college, and that was probably about it. And I never really took it. I always had a guitar, always just messed around with it. I got infatuated with the gear, which was just, I guess, partly because I was kind of, I was, I always wanted a Les Paul, but I was like, I just can't spend $2,500 on a Les Paul. I'm going to figure out how to build one, and I'll send you pictures of it. And,
oh, that's cool.
And so my guitar my main guitar is a Les Paul Wesley model.
Nice, because it's custom made, right?
Well, it's actually got a kind of cool story. I spent literally a year researching how to build this thing. So, I spent an entire year researching how to build this thing, and I bought wood, a mahogany that was from a guy who worked for me, and he had it, and his father gave it to him or something like that. So the wood was actually from like 1960s, the mahogany. It was, a really old piece of wood. And I took it to my father-in-law's shop and I bought plans. I built all these jigs, these routing guides, and I built about 85% of a Les Paul. And I got to a point where I just couldn't build anymore unless I spent a lot of money on equipment. Like I couldn't cut the fretboard. There's just things I couldn't do.
Right. And I
found this guy named Bruce Bennett who had a blowing up on the internet in a very big negative way a few years ago. He built, I think, Backlund guitars. He's a very, very good luthier, but his business went bankrupt. And I found out about this. He went bankrupt right when I sent him my guitar. Like, he was owing all these guys money. Anyway, he finished building my guitar for like $400. He did about 20% of the work, reset the neck. I sent it off to a guy to get painted. They painted in nitro. And right when it got finished, I lost the job. So it sat in this guy's shop for a year. And
just because you didn't have the money to pay him or something?
Yeah. It's kind of, this is literally over like a 2-year time.
Yeah.
So, just the story on the guitar would take a half an hour.
No, that's all right.
Of why it ended up taking so long. Anyway, a long story short, the guy painted it in Pelham blue. He had a paint chip color book from 1960s Cadillac. It's the exact Pelham blue from the Cadillac. I eventually gave the guy's money. He sent me the guitar. Right when I started putting gear on it, he did like a really old nitro finish on it. It just started cracking everywhere. So it looks super cool. I still pick up Gibsons today. They don't feel as good. I filed the neck like really super thin on accident. So it's like a super thin like Gibson neck. my old boss, Ford Fry, has like 20 restaurants. He's got all these vintage guitars. Like I was working on the guitar one day and broke the pickup, and I was like, "Oh God, I had no money. I had no money." And literally, I'm in Florida. Literally 30 minutes after I broke the pickups, my old boss, texted me. He's like, "Hey, do you want those David Allen pickups?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, give them to me right now.
So I put in David Allen pickups, and that's my number one guitar. And
that's cool.
Built all my own pedals from kits, and built my cab myself. And it's just like how it ties. You mentioned earlier about how like how this ties into what I do. I think it's a lot of chefs I know are really into music. So I was on Top Chef season 13. And my good friend Jeremy Ford, he was my roommate, he actually won Top Chef. So I was talking how a lot of musicians like food and chefs I know are really into music. He was actually the original guitarist for Shinedown.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a great band.
Yeah, so I'll try to get him. Maybe he's sitting up at his house right now. I'll try to get him to do a podcast with you.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool.
That would be great, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's more about like with food, and I think like good chefs I know are into music. It's the obsession of working with your hands and just kind of, I guess we feel food, we feel music, and it's kind of really intertwined. I became friends with a guy. Have you ever heard of the Dandy Warhols?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in a restaurant in Mobile. This dude, he's got like long hair. He looks kind of like he doesn't have money. He like waves to me or whatever. Just some whatever dude. A snarking guy. He's like, "Hey man, I'm Courtney Taylor from the Dandy Warhols." I'm like, that's literally how he introduced himself. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
Courtney Taylor. I'm sorry, from the Dandy Warhols. I'm like, a little bit, and we ended up hanging out, and we still talk to this day. And he always, he made the comment to me, we're eating. Every chef he knows wants to be a rock star, and every rock star he knows wants to be a chef because they all travel and they're eating out food all the time. So they're kind of intermingled community.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just kind of cool.
No, that's a good quote though. You should make that into a T-shirt.
You can.
Every musician wants to be a chef, and every chef wants to be a musician or a rock star.
Rock star, yeah. So yeah, I know a lot of chefs that are like really into playing music.
Well, let's go ahead and let's go back to which were you first? Were you a chef first, or were you a musician first, or how did that come about?
I've been a chef for 22 years, and I wouldn't even consider myself a musician. I guess if you play music, you're a musician. I'm probably
at some level, yeah.
I'm as good as a musician as people who come into my restaurant and say that they cook at their house. We'll put it probably that way.
Right.
So very amateurish. I try really hard, but I don't make a lot of progress.
Yeah, but you have fun doing it though, right?
No, I love. I'll say this. I did sing. I can hit like an A flat. I mean, I can sing pretty A flat or B flat. Probably can't do that anymore. My father was actually a singer. I found that out later that he was like in a band in college or something. My brother did musical theater. I sang. I was super close to quitting cooking when I was so I worked in New York City. I worked at really, really, really fancy restaurants, and I worked there before they enforced labor laws. So I literally worked about 85, 90 hours a week. And one of the restaurants I was working at a place called Aquavit, I remember calculating my hourly wage, and it came out to like $3.15 an hour.
Oh yeah.
We were working that much. Everyone got sued a few years later, and the whole industry has grown up. I'm sure the Me Too movement and all that. I mean, the whole industry has really grown up a lot, but it's it's very barbaric. When I was in New York, I was getting really burned out. I was like, I'm going to be a rock star. I want to a band. So I did a couple auditions and for a band, and I did well. And I remember going to this like open mic night one night, and this is what made me not be a rock star or try to pursue the career of music. I went to this giant. It was like a big open mic. I mean, there's probably 600 people there. It was like you have to sign up on this list, and I remember this English dude. He was like literally like 65 years old. He was wearing leather pants, and he gets up on stage like, "You guys ready to rock? We're gonna kick ass tonight, man. It's gonna be great." And he's got this thick English accent. I'm like, And I remember like, this guy's a loser. Like, this guy's like really old, and he used to like be in a band. And like, I said, I don't want to take the risk. So I gave up those dreams and, you know, put my head down and kept cooking. And, you know, it's worked out pretty well. You know, cooking's definitely worked out well for me, but, you know, it's still a struggle. Definitely now.
So what got you to, because you grew up in Alabama, which I did as well. I was born in Athens, lived in Albertville, Alabama for about 10 years until my family moved to Georgia, and I finished up high school there, and then went back to Alabama, actually Boaz, for 2 years to go to the community college over there at Sneed State, and then came to Tennessee to attend MTSU, and then got a music industry degree from there. So I'm definitely, I love Alabama. I love just the South. I've always lived in the South, except for like maybe the 6-month stretch where my brother was born in like Missouri. But after that, after he was born, we moved back down to the South. So I've always been in the South, love the culture down here and the people and all that. So what was it like growing up in Alabama and eventually, you know, finding your way over to Mississippi there at Oxford and doing all that?
Well, I think with me, so while I went to Oxford, I was a pole vaulter. I was a collegiate athlete, and I was on the track team there. And and my father went to Oxford. My father's from Illinois, and you know, ended up running track at Oxford for 3 years. And I didn't like the South. You know, I didn't realize how great it was till like later. You know, till it was. You know, I thought Mobile was horrible. And, you know, when I was working in Mobile and I had my restaurant, I thought I hated it. Oh, I hate, you know, very negative. You know, I've grown up a lot, I'd say, in the past 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like anywhere I lived. I thought, you know, everyone was the problem. And I didn't realize, like, you know, how great it is. Your friends and your family is, like, what's more important than, like, you know, I'm going to back up a little bit. You know, you know, I was in Oxford, and you know, I didn't really like Alabama. I didn't like Mobile. I was like, I got to move to New York. I moved to New York. I worked in the best restaurants in the city. And then I ended up back in Mobile. One of my family members died. I inherited a little bit of money, and we opened a restaurant. And I got a lot of publicity. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with a James Beard Award. I was nominated for the James Beard Award 2 times, Best Chef South, which is equivalent to being nominated for an Emmy.
Right. That's great.
Yeah, and I didn't even know what it was. I got a phone call like, "You're nominated for a James Beard Award." I was like, "What is that?" They're like, "It's like an Emmy." And I looked it up. I was like, "Oh God, that's like huge." There's like 15 people in 3 states are nominated for this thing.
Right.
And I didn't really like Mobile. I didn't realize what I had till I left. And like, I go back now and I'm like, you know, I left Mobile and I'm like kicking myself because it's such a beautiful town, and it's you know, the South is, you know, the food and the culture that we have here, I think is just fantastic. And, you know, I'm a lover of the South now that I'm 40. I guess I'm 43 now. I turned 43 the day before we all in America realized there was a crisis.
Yeah. Well, I'll be 40 this year and later in November, so I'm in the same age range as you are, and yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but it's good, man. I mean, I think the South is good. And
so how does one get nominated for a James Beard Award? I mean, do you make the best steak? I mean, or what? I mean, how does that come about?
Well, there's a couple ways. The majority way now, which I'm not a huge fan of, you know, I'll just say it anyway. A lot of it's political right now.
Right.
I was the new kid in town. I'll say in town, like in Alabama. So I was in the region of Alabama, Louisiana, which is New Orleans, which is huge, and Florida, which is Miami. I was in that whole region, and they select like 15 to 17 chefs to get nominated. I moved straight from New York, and I was just doing food I learned in New York. I didn't realize how elevated my food was, so I started eating out. And I was like, oh crap, I'm like cooking way above what I should be doing. It showed with the amount of cover. Like the day I got nominated, I think we did like 30 people in the restaurant. I didn't have a busy restaurant. Right. We were getting a lot of publicity, but people just didn't. I was doing weird, like really weird stuff that just people didn't get, you know?
Right.
a lot of times you get nominated because I didn't know anybody. So I think I got, well, actually, I know how I got nominated. There was Atlanta a food writer, and his brother lived in Mobile, and he was a judge for the James Beard. He ate in the restaurant and nominated me. Most people get nominated for what I hear, like it's like a good old boy club.
Right.
It used to be. It's actually changing a lot. You know, they're pushing a lot for women now, and you know, people. You know, it was. You know, I mean, yeah, like I said, it used to be a good old boys. Now it's there's a lot of ethnicity in it now. So our culture, not culture, our industry's changing for the good. But
Yeah.
a lot of it's politics, honestly. Now it is.
Well, how did that lead you to being on Top Chef? What does that look like?
Get nominated for a bureau basically gets my foot in any door. So,
Right.
when I would put, my application, James Beard nominee, they'll actually look at it,
Oh yeah.
I went to, so I don't know if I can say this, I might get sued because I had to sign $1 million waiver. No, I can't say this actually. So I can't tell you everything.
Bummer. We want to know the juicy stuff, man.
Well, I'm not trying to get sued over it. They probably won't do anything. A lot of people who get on Top Chef, they like know somebody or something. And I made it all the way from an open interview to on the show. Took 2 years to get on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I don't know. I say crazy stuff. Probably is partly how I got on it.
Yeah.
And I worked in really good restaurants. They fit certain profiles. I was like the likable kind of fat Southern dude who could cook really well.
Yeah. I'm watching American Idol right now, which I'm sure other millions of other people are. And I really like that it's on Hulu because I can skip all the commercial crap.
Yeah.
So I can not watch it on Mondays and Tuesday nights and actually go off and do other stuff. And then, during the day or when I have some free time, I can just pop on Hulu and watch it real fast. But it's the same thing. It's like people get through just because they look a certain way or they're just different,
Well, what they do, and you'll I don't know if you knew this, but after people hear this, they're going to definitely pick up on it. They basically have their cast. They need the fat dude. They need they always have the weird lesbian girl who has like pink hair. They got the gay guy. They got like 3 black dudes. They got the dorky white dude. They always have their formula, and they just put in their people.
Right.
And you look at any season of any show, you'll definitely you'll see that it's just a formula. And if they happen to need the fat Southern guy who worked in like fancy restaurants, I happen to be that guy that year, and then I got on it.
So this might be true for the cooking world as well, but definitely I see it on American Idol, or maybe even The Voice, or other singing shows. Where last year Alejandro was clearly like so much better than Lane Hardy, but Lane ended up winning. But now, like, you don't hear anything at all from Lane, and you hear more from Alejandro. So it's like it's almost better not to win.
I'd say
at that point.
What I always thought was funny about The Voice, they don't show anybody, but yet everyone looks pretty good.
Right.
They all have this look. They all, even if you're like like me, I can say fat guy because I weigh 250. But they always have this like. Everyone's got some look, and most people, I'd say, 85% of them are good looking,
Right.
Even though you can't see them. It's kind of funny.
So is that the same or similar to like a cooking show where like even if you don't win, you're still kind of coming out ahead because you're known by more people?
Used to be.
Or how does that work?
I wouldn't say now, no. I wouldn't say anymore. If you win Top Chef, you're, if you can't make money off winning, you're an idiot, basically. Like my friend who won, he told me he put like $400,000 in the bank that year.
Wow.
Like in the bank, like after, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
You're, if you can't make it after that, you're pretty much done. But I know, like, the beginning of like the cooking shows, because now, every year there's 20 people that go on it, and 20 times, what are they on season 15 now? Right. 20 times 15, that's a lot of people. So it's not as a big deal anymore. What was a big deal? Like if I was single, it would have been super awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Like I remember, like, I'd be at like I said, I'm a not a. I mean, I used to obviously be skinny. I used to run track in college. I used to be super ripped, but when I got off that show, I'd have like, I remember eating dinner with people and like really good looking girls who wouldn't talk to me anymore would like come up to me like, "Oh, my friend wants to meet you. She's very nervous." And it's like this 23-year-old girl who's like smoking hot. And she's like, "Oh, can I have a picture with you?" I'm like, "Oh, geez." So it makes you,
Yeah.
makes you feel good for, about 6 months to a year when you get recognized. But,
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So you're in Cleveland, Tennessee now.
Yeah.
So after Alabama, after New York, after all the accolades on TV and all this stuff, what brought you to Cleveland, and what makes that area special for you for having your own restaurant there?
Yeah, we got a restaurant. I'm a part owner in a little dive bar we built. So a couple of years ago, I was an executive chef for a guy named Jeffrey Zarkarian. I opened up his restaurant. He's a well-known chef on the Food Network, and I did that for a few months, and it just ended badly. It was not good. So my old friend who owns a bunch of restaurants and is extremely wealthy called me and was like, "Hey, do you want to be a corporate chef for me?" I said, "Heck yeah." So I go work for him, and it's a rough job. I mean, it's a lot of work, which is whatever. And this was probably a time in my life, I'd say it was only almost 2 years ago, but every time something didn't work out, I'd like, "Oh, I'll just go take another job." I'll go take another job. And my wife's getting a little fed up with this. You're stop. I don't want to move anymore. You're 40 years old. You're not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
So I took one last job, and I probably shouldn't have done it because my old job was very, it paid really well. It was a really, for a chef, it was, it paid very good. But I took this job here, and because the guy was looking for a James Beard nominated, a well-known chef. He's extremely wealthy. You ever heard of Check in the Cash?
Yeah.
He owns all of them.
Oh wow. Okay.
But he doesn't support us financially. I get 9.8% of ownership of his ownership every year. So in 5 years, I own 49% of the restaurant. He owns none of it.
Right.
So I don't, that was kind of thing. You get to own a restaurant, you don't have to pay for it. The guy spent $3.5 million on it, and we've struggled a little bit because I had to completely change the concept. But they contacted me. I head up here, and it's the rest is history. Where I'm now here and hanging out in the land of music, I guess. There's a lot of guitar builders here. They got who's the guy? Lucky Dog Guitars is in Cleveland. Have you seen their stuff?
Lucky Dog Guitars. I have not. I'll look them up online though.
Gonna blow your mind. These guys are getting huge. They're in Cleveland, Tennessee. The guy who built my Gibson, who finished it, my Wesley Les Paul, he's in Hickson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I lived in Tennessee, when I was probably like 1 or 2, he was in Hickson, Tennessee, because my dad he's been in the chicken business for a long time, and worked for ConAgra, Tyson, Pilgrim's Pride, all that stuff. So yeah, we were in Hickson, Tennessee. We were in Nashville, Hendersonville area for a short time. We kind of traveled around because of chicken business, and wherever he got a job, and the next raise he took, and so that's why we would move around. But yeah, I know Hickson pretty well. And I actually graduated, living in Georgia. I graduated there from Dade County, which is in Trenton, Georgia. So it's not too far from Cleveland there. I'm at like, 40 minutes, something like that.
Not too far at all.
Yeah, it's not far. But I'm looking at the website right now. The Lucky Dog Handcrafted Guitars looks
crazy,
really cool.
Right?
Yeah. The curl on that fretboard is sick.
Yeah, these guys are doing. I mean, you want a guitar? They're like back ordered. I mean, they got some major players playing with them now, and
cool.
Like
I'll be sure to put those in the show notes here.
Yeah,
so
they're
people
killer.
can check that out.
So you want to talk about some music or what?
Looks like they got some tellies and some other stuff.
A lot of the stuff he does. The guy who does PR for me, I think, is about to work with these guys with their merch and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, let's finish up the cooking side, and then we'll go to the music side here.
Uh,
So, with my lack of cooking knowledge, is there a difference between like a corporate chef and a sous chef, or
the corporate chef.
what is
So
that?
I've been a sous chef's a dude, basically a guy who works for the executive chef.
Okay.
Corporate chef, it's typically like I was a corporate chef in my last job. I was over a few restaurants.
Okay.
You got executive chefs or chef de cuisines underneath you, and they typically have sous chefs underneath them. You know, we switched to all to go a week before everyone did in this town, and we're very blessed. We're actually doing well.
All
Tonight,
to go, like a delivery service or something.
delivery, yeah. All we're doing is delivery or pickup.
Oh, cool.
We did what we normally do on a regular Tuesday.
Wow.
No, I don't have a sous chef anymore. He actually put his notice in right before all this stuff happened. With
Wow.
me and like two cooks and like my wife. I've been working with her forever in the restaurant business.
Oh, great. That's good.
So we actually might in Tennessee allows alcohol to be we can sell mixed drinks temporarily to go. Which is
that's cool.
Regardless of what you feel about alcohol, because I know a lot of people around here are like anti-alcohol.
Right.
You know, it was Jesus' first miracle, so I'm drinking red wine right now myself.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I've never really. I've tried alcohol like a few times, just like sipping it. And when I toured Europe with my band Feedback Revival, it was really the first time I actually like tried wine and stuff, and like it's just not my taste.
God, wine. My wife's a certified sommelier. I just love wine. It's just
that's cool.
Super delicious.
Yeah, I'd rather have a good root beer or chocolate milk. That's my thing. But
well, I probably wouldn't be fat if I went down that route.
Yeah, that's all good. All right, well, we got a good background on your growing up and cooking and all that. So yeah, well, let's talk about your journey through music. And so you talk about your custom guitar, your Wesley Les Paul, right?
And I got a Wesley Telecaster as well.
Oh, cool.
But I do the font, and I got the Wesley. I found a dude who did a Gibson font, so he did Wesley in Gibson font. Then I got to do Fender font. You find one on Etsy. It's like $7. Yeah. I mean, obviously, these guitars are worthless because they have my name on them, but I have a Wesley Telecaster, and it's the same Fender font. It says Wesley.
Well, if you're watching the YouTube recording of this podcast, I'll have some pictures up there so you guys can see what he's talking about.
Yeah, I'll actually shoot I hope Gibson. Oh, Gibson will probably sue me next because they're just after suing everybody, I guess. So I want to get a cease and desist to stop producing the one of one.
The one of one Les Paul. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a couple pictures of it. It's a nice looking guitar, and I know you're going to come through here, so you got to play them.
Oh yeah. I want to check it out for sure. I was actually at Gibson Guitars for about 10 years, from 2005 to 2014. I was in the rough mill, working on the necks and the bodies and cutting out stuff and running the CNC and all that. So
can you build a guitar?
No.
You could probably get as close as I did and then send it off to somebody to finish it like I did.
I think the neck joint would be hard to me, and I never could do the frets. Like doing my own fret work has been always just paid somebody else because I was either too scared to do it or I'd mess it up and still have to pay somebody else to do it anyway. So yeah, I never could do the fret thing. But
so you're basically telling me, and let me see if I'm right. You worked for Gibson and you couldn't build a guitar. Is that why they have quality control issues? Because of people like you?
Well, there's multiple different stages.
I know. I'm not messing with you.
I know. But I was only in the rough mill, working on the chop saw for probably 5 of those years. Simply just cutting the wood, just cutting body stock, neck stock, maple tops.
Probably boring work after the first 2 months of the
Oh,
enamor
the
that you're
first
working
month, the first month of working at Gibson was great.
because
Then
you're building Gibsons.
then after that, it's like, yeah, it's just a job.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I have a pilot's license, and I used to talk with different pilots, and they're like airline pilots. I'm like, God, that must be the most boring job ever. Like, yeah, it's pretty boring. You
Yeah.
just get to play. You're just like a truck driver.
So you like building custom guitars, and
Well,
you got some equipment in the garage, or
no, my father. So what I did, I built, like I said, I built a few pedals, and I built like my little box for my speaker cab, which weighs like 600 pounds, but it's pretty awesome. And well, I built it right. It's
yeah.
nice. It's the birch plywood and all that. I built this at my father-in-law, so I only built a few times. The telly I actually didn't build. I was gonna build that, but the guy locally, he's a Luther. He was gonna let me build it with him, and he's like, "Oh, but your insurance company won't let me do it." He didn't. I mean, he charged me, I don't know, less than like $200 to build a solid walnut. It's 2-piece sandwich top walnut. But when you see it, it's ridiculous.
That's cool.
But it's got a P90 in the neck, and I pulled one of the magnets out because it was too loud, and I read about a Fralin made a P45, and that was like one way to lower the output. Let's pull one of the magnets out of the P90.
Oh yeah.
And I did it. And I didn't change the tone of it, and it matches up with the 9.8K Telecaster bridge pickup. It sounds great.
Right.
And it's got a neck from China that I paid $26 for. But yeah, the body's pretty sick, and I think we watch a lot of these podcasts and these guys on YouTube, and they're always talking about like $5,000 guitars, and it's kind of funny. I was talking to my brothers, like I would like to do a podcast where like normal people who might like build a body and have to buy a $30 neck from China or something can actually get like a decent guitar out of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second, because I've bought necks offline, like eBay and different places, and sometimes they're hit or miss. And nowadays, I'm just to the point where I don't really want to care. I don't want to take the time to piece together a guitar. I just want to buy it like it should be, like right away, and just play it. But
so you don't like screw. See, I like screwing with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like
just
part of the allure.
I was that guy for a long time where, like like I said, I would buy a neck. I would try to mod a Squire Strat and change stuff, and it's just like, just forget it.
Was that because of you're in a different financial place than where you were, or is it because
I think it's just time. It's just
time is money.
Yeah, time is money. It's like I'd rather just. That's why I'm here lately. In the last few years, I've really invested into Reverend guitars.
Dude, they're sick.
They are super sick. And if you watch any of my YouTube videos, then you'll see them like all over the place.
Yeah, I've seen them on your stuff. Yeah, they're just dope.
Yeah. So
but they're good price, right? What are they, like 600 new or something like that?
Oh no, I think they're around, like, nowadays. They were probably a little bit lower, but nowadays they're like 1,000 to 1,200 brand new. But yeah, I mean, it's just the necks are solid. They all come with lock-in tuners, Wilkinson tremolos. Really good hardware. All the pots are really small tolerance, like 10%. And they got treble bleed circuits, bass contour knobs. I mean, just everything you'd want to like soup up a regular guitar is already on there.
What do you think? So what I've done to some of my guitars recently is I didn't do on the single coils. I didn't do treble bleed. I did 50 Gibson's vintage wiring on my Strat and my Telly.
What? Like a Les Paul wiring on a Strat?
Yeah, so you turn down the volume, because I mess with my volume a lot and not my tone as much.
Yeah.
So I turn my volume down; it doesn't screw with the tone.
Yeah. Well, I have I came across a cheap Les Paul Studio, or actually a 50s tribute, I think. for like $300 just for the
What?
just for the occasion to like fix it because like one of the pickups were broke. I'll probably just have to rewire it, but it's gonna be a cool like YouTube series on how like do like the 50s wiring versus the other kind of wiring, whatever that's called.
Modern.
Yeah, modern
Modern.
wiring or whatever. Just to try things out, and then once I'm done with it, I'll probably end up selling it because I just don't need another
I'll buy that.
guitar. But
I'll buy that.
yeah, I'll sell it to you
Yeah.
for.
You pay
I'll sell
for
it to you for 400. How about that? I'll make $100 off of it.
I'll turn around and sell for 500 and then
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
No, but I like to just mess with stuff. I think, part of it with me is like, I think, say why I bought a like cheap neck. I just wanted to, see what we could do with the cheap neck. And, the guy who helped build my guitar kind of got mad at me. He's like, why would you buy this cheap neck? I mean, he goes, it might work, it might not. And we got it, sanded the back of the neck. And, what I like to do is, I don't know, I give it to a guy who actually knows how to play guitars. Like, does this feel like a piece of junk or not? The first time I handed it to this guy, he's in a band, or they tour and all that. He's in a band called Pony Bradshaw. A guy named Cody. No, they're really good, dude. Check them out. They're really badass.
Okay.
And first time I handed my telly with the cheap neck, he's like, "This neck feels cheap." I was like, "Well, it is cheap." He goes, "The body's like ridiculous."
He's like, $26. Give me a break,
I mean, he's like, basically, you have like a $1,600 guitar with like a $20 neck. I was like, yeah, pretty much. So then I worked on the neck. I was like, try it again. He's like, all right, it doesn't feel cheap anymore. I was like, then I told him how much it cost. He's like, oh, damn, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, what did you do to the neck to make it different, though?
Well, I did. I worked on the fret ends.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay.
I rolled the fingerboard a little bit. I took a little note out of Eddie Van Halen's playbook, and I started sanding my necks, and I rub I sand metal, and I rub that on the back of it. I know that sounds weird, and it looks just like an old neck, and it feels like an old neck, and it just feels, it feels fantastic to me. But I'm not as experienced as you are, so I have the ignorance is bliss gift. So to me, it feels like a $3,000 guitar. You may pick it up and says, "Hey, this feels like a piece of junk," but
right.
I pick up an American telly. I think it feels just as good or as better or better. But it's got a lot of love and hours and like literally hundreds of hours of research for me to figure out how to do this crap, because I'm just weird and obsessive with stuff. Yeah. And I think the bug to do this weird stuff started probably about 6, 7, 8 years ago. I was selling a guitar on eBay, and this guy messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I've got a Martin kit that a Luther built. Do you want to just swap guitars?" And it had nothing on the headstock. He goes, "It's basically a D44." And I was selling my guitar for $300. I'm like, okay, sure. And he sent it to me, and I was, I'm a really friendly dude. I went to Guitar Center. I'm friends with all these guys. Like, hey, play this. And they're like, dude, this like looks like a D44. I was like, well, play it. What do you think? And they play it, and they're like, what the hell is it, dude? They're like blown away.
Yeah.
So I paid $300 for that. And they're like, what? So I started thinking, I was like, wow, these guitars are like $3,000. And then, I wanted a Les Paul, but, getting back to the Les Paul story, I was like, I want a Les Paul. I can't. At the time, I was making like, with people who own Les Pauls make less. I was making like $80,000 a year.
Right.
Or 60, which that's a lot of money, but, I'm not a professional musician, so I can't just spend $2,000 on a guitar. It's not how I make. For me, it's a hobby, it's not a.
Right.
But then I started doing that research to build that Les Paul. Like I was on this website to build it. Actually ended up spending like $1,400.
Hey,
so
Wesley,
I just bought a used one.
Well, let's move on to like your pedal stuff. You mentioned you started tinkering with pedals, and what did that look like for you? How did you get into that?
Well, it was just like I said, I'm just like weird and like to be obsessed with just learning how to do everything. So it's like, I started trying to like build a pedal from scratch, and I don't have an engineering background. I was like, after a few months of researching how to read schematics, I gave up. I was like, oh, I could just buy a pedal kit. And I thought,
exactly.
So, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, wait, I can buy an original Big Muff circuit, and it's the same thing. And after you do enough research, some of these people are like, oh, you got to have this capacitor. I call BS on that because those capacitors back then had 30% tolerance or whatever.
Right.
They're just all over the place. And so I bought some pedal kits and just started building them. Then I started doing, some like acid etching with I was like, how do I screen print these? Like, well, I don't have a screen printer. I was like, oh, you can print reverse on a laser printer, and you can iron that print onto your metal pedal, then you can dip it in acid. It would etch like your design. So I just started having fun. I built 4 or 5 pedals, and I built an original Big Muff. I built a tube screamer with a 9-way knob switch that would do all these different circuits and all that. And I started realizing all this stuff is just it's the nuances and the difference in these pedals are just it's so minute.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Well, some say you can buy a Boss DS1, change 2 components, and now you got a souped up Keeley modded type something,
Exactly. I mean, you watch JSH pedals. He's like, oh, this is a tube screamer circuit.
Right.
And that's why I like watching his stuff so much, because he's
his show is top notch. It's really good.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's a tube. Oh, this is a Big Muff. he's not gonna lie. Pedal apparently schematics aren't I don't think you can get a what's that called, patent on them, so you just copy them.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and it's that chase for tone. And looking back on it, if I would have just chased playing an actual guitar instead of building all this crap, I'd probably be pretty good by now.
Right. Well, I've been playing for 25 years.
Seriously though, I've been playing for 20 years. Yeah.
Well, I know, but I think, for a lot of those years, let me put it this way. After 25 years of playing, I'm probably as good as someone who's been playing for 5 years. I don't know how that ratio works out, but it's I've never really been a shredder. I never could play super fast licks and whatever, but I'm a really good rhythm player and a really good melodic solo kind of guy. But don't ask me to do any chicken picking or really fast stuff, because it's not going to happen.
Wait, how old were you when you started playing?
I was 14.
Typically, you see people who can shred and stuff. They're kind of the kids in high school that got picked on, and they just sit in a room for 15 hours and just play guitar non-stop and just
I don't know. Maybe you have to have some certain chromosome that makes you super fast. I just don't have that. I don't know. I don't know how it works. Yeah, I mean, I would play a lot. I would play a lot, but it would be Skinnerd, and I'd learn some Zeppelin stuff and some Eagles.
Freebird.
Yeah, Freebird.
Yeah. That was the first thing you learned how to play. That's first thing you have to play when you're in the South is Freebird, right?
Right. Well, I was in a band in high school. We weren't official anything, but we didn't have a band name. It was just guys that got together and played. But for our senior year talent show, we played Freebird, all 10 minutes of it. So I took 3 months. I got my little Skinnerd guitar book, and note for note, as good as I could after 3 years of playing. I learned it, and I got it on DVD. I need to put it up on YouTube so people can laugh at me.
That's sick.
But it's pretty fun.
So I'm sure a lot of the Head Rush guys are wondering when's the Head Rush talk happening.
On this podcast, or just
I don't
general?
know. I mean, you're known for Head Rush stuff, aren't you? Or is that?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Why the obsession with Head Rush? I know you just put out a video why you liked Head Rush.
Sure, yeah.
Or not. You maybe didn't just put it out. I just watched it, so it could have been a year old for all I know. I just watched it. Why you
Yeah.
picked Head Rush?
What I like about the head rush, and this will be a good segue into talking about gear. Because you talk about you mentioned the tube screamer earlier, and how all these companies they just take a tube screamer and they mod it, right? And that's all they really do. They just change a few components, and now they got a new pedal,
Yeah.
right? Well, what I like about, and this is what people who have like the Helix and obsess about the Helix or an Axe Effects or whatever else is like, oh, I got 30 different overdrive pedals.
I don't need 30.
It's like, okay, great. Put two of them up ahead, head to head against each other, and tell me that you couldn't pick them out in a mix.
You can't. You're going to use
it's not
one.
going to happen.
No, I agree.
I do have the HX Effects, which is basically that one unit replaced my whole analog pedal board before I got the head rush. Just because I wanted something small, I didn't want to deal with all the cables and power supplies.
How do you like
and
that?
Stuff.
Is that the HD5? Is that the little one with the 3 buttons?
No, the HX Effects is it came out after the M series, because you basically have your DL4, your MM4, all that stuff. Then the M series came out, which had all those effects, but like with more capabilities. And then the HX Effects came out, which basically had all the legacy effects plus all the new reverbs, and they keep adding more overdrives and whatever else.
Just too much. I don't want legacy effects. I don't want crap that was made 8 years ago. I mean, that can't sound good, can it?
No, it sounds really good. Yeah, it sounds really good.
Really?
I mean, the green DL4 delay pedal that you can have like up to 3 different presets and a tap tempo, that pedal is all I used for years. And it was great because I have the I really like the auto volume echo sound in there for like my ambient swell effect kind of stuff.
Oh, I really liked your head rush. I've downloaded your preset last week, by the way, and I really liked your church stuff. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that's why I used the DL4, because I played a worship band at church and had that ambient sound going. And whenever I upgraded to a new Line 6 product, I kept Line 6 on my board because I had to have that one sound,
Gotcha.
But the switches kept getting better and the algorithms kept getting better, and so but out of all the gear I have, the head rush is definitely what I use like 95% of the time. Like I have the gig board right here on my desk. I just got a cable going right into my audio interface, which is the PreSonus Studio Live Series 3, mixing board. And whenever I need to lay down a part, I just plug in, pull up a tone, and then start recording. So it's just super easy and fast and intuitive. And,
no, I agree. I think for me, like why do I head rush? I'm going to tell you is
yes, we want to know.
Well, because I realized how much time I wasted, and I'm not going to say I regret building pedals and building guitars and literally hundreds of hours of research how to do this stuff, but I can't play good. And I got the head rush, and I literally turned it on, and I pushed a button, and it sounded good. And I'm like, and I know that's counterintuitive because you could just tweak it for hours.
Yeah.
But I don't have to. I don't have to tweak it for hours. And I was like, wow, I'm just actually playing guitar now after all these years of just, like I said, I like to build stuff, but now I can just practice guitar. So it's actually made my life simpler. Because I'm not, we got to go find this new pedal. And, like all Americans, I think we sit in front of our phones and we like research crap nonstop. The new pedal's out and it's got this new diode in it, and it's blue diode instead of a green diode, and it and you just sit there and you obsess about all this junk.
Right.
And you buy all these pedals and all this stuff, and you got to switch. It just doesn't end. And at the end of the day, everyone goes, "Oh, I'm chasing after the Hendrix tone." Well, the dude had like 3 pedals and an amp. I'm chasing after like Jimmy Page. He had a guitar and like 1 pedal, I think, and an amp.
Well, that's why going back to the JRC thing or the Tube Screamer thing is like JRC Overdrive is like the JRC circuit that was in the original Tube Screamer. So, Now, I'm looking at the list right now. You got a white boost, which is basically your RC booster by Exotic Effects. Green JRC, which is your tube screamer. The DC distortion, which is basically, I mean, Headrush is came from 11 Rack, which was owned by Avid Pro Tools. So a lot of these effect names are straight from like a Pro Tools era type, effects and names and stuff. But like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what you call it. It still just sounds like a distortion pedal.
Yeah.
The Black Op is a Proco Rat. Tri-Fuzz is your Big Muff Pie. 8-Bit Crush.
Triangle too, right? The original one, I think.
Yeah, the original one.
It sounded, because the Big Muff Pie I had it before I saw my Headrush, and it actually sounded pretty similar.
Right, exactly. The 8-Bit Crush, still not quite sure.
Yeah, what is that?
It's just weird. Like, 8 bits is referring to like how many samples you can have in audio, and the lower the sample. Nintendo. Yeah, exactly. Like, so the lower the sample, like the less like quality is capturing. So it's just supposed to sound like really, especially a fuzz, but it's like a really weird fuzz.
From old school.
And then now they added.
I'm not emo enough to get that one, I guess.
I know, right? Yeah, me neither. And then the Anxiety Overdrive is obviously the OCD pedal from Full Tone. So out of those, like, more than a handful of pedals, like, I can get pretty much any sound I want. I don't need 20 more variations on the same kind of thing.
I would like a fuzz face.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, there are a few essentials that it could be added, but for all these guys that are complaining about the lack of options, is like, the only limitation you have is that of your imagination.
Well, I mean, if you don't like if you need the more options, you can still put more pedals into it if you want to get all weird and obsessed with it and never stop chasing tone. But I think the best way to chase tone is practice playing your guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a really good guitar player, you can probably plug it straight into a tube amp and yours going to sound pretty bad, pretty awesome.
Yeah. So as far as the Headrush goes, what's an amp that you like using the most out of?
I've been using the Marshall, the 60s one. Which one is it? The Plexis.
Yeah.
Just because I'm obsessed with that era of music. And what's funny, I started going, which is really weird because you have all these pedals. I started going just like amp and like cab.
Mm-hmm.
And like, my boost is me turning my volume up. So I'm playing it like a tube amp now. I'm actually stripping it down. And that's when I started I think I hit you up and I hit a couple people up before. I'm like, this is actually, when I put in your presets, not presets, when I followed your input and output and I followed your EQ guide,
right,
it sounded so much better. I'm like, they should have the McFarland like EQ already set up in
factory
there.
It
just because something clicked with my ear and I started noticing like I didn't like some of the sounds. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I followed your guide and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm starting to love it. But I'm starting to miss that tube feel a little bit.
Oh, sure. Well, I was discussing...
You said the guitar speaker, and I bought one.
Right.
And now I'm waiting 30 days for my power amp to come in.
Now, which one did you end up ordering?
Well, you're going to be really surprised. So I, of course, as now you may have started to realize, I do way too much research and I get obsessed. I start looking up the 44 Magnum.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, look at the Moore, the MOER that he sent Moore.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It actually sounds better. Then these guys say, hey, that's just a Class D amp. It's just these amps. You can buy a circuit board for $9. It's literally the same thing. Then I go down the rabbit hole more. I mean, this is only a 3-hour research. This isn't too bad.
Oh, sure.
Hey,
yeah.
These are actually in these amps, and they already have plugins, and they got a volume knob, and they're $30 off Amazon. So I bought a one off Amazon, a Lemmy, or it starts with an L.
Okay.
It was used. It's a 20 watt by 2. Just because I want to screw around with it, because I already have an FR 112.
Right.
It's going to be here in a few days, or like 15 days. It's a Class D 20 watt by 2 power amp that I'm going to bridge to 40 watts, and I paid like $30 for it.
That's cool.
So
You're going to use that with your regular speaker cab, right?
Yeah, I built the speaker cab, which, like I said, it doesn't really save you too much money, like building this stuff. I just
Right.
like doing it.
You just like doing it, yeah.
Yeah, I bought. It's probably the only silver speaker cab with a gold grill that there is. It's pretty cool looking. It's silver, like that leatherite, And I put in a Celestian. What is it? Vintage Celestian. That's like the '80s speaker. I kind of like that tight speaker versus a greenback.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm still, I won't say I'm on the fence, but there are times when because I have my gig board right here on my computer desk with the studio monitors, and when I listen back, I'm like, man, that sounds really good, Especially when I record it and I put it
it sounds the same.
I put it in the mix. It's like, you can't tell me it's not a real amp, it sounds really good.
I agree.
But then when I either run through like the effects return of an amplifier going to my 2x12 cab over here, it's an Avatar cab with a vintage 30 and a greenback, having that set up, I'm like, I do kind of hear a difference, it sounds really good. I guess you're getting closer to the amp in the room sound because you are using a physical, like, analog power amp going through an actual speaker.
Yeah.
That has the natural, frequency roll offs that a speaker has, unlike, FRFR, which is really just spitting out exactly what you put in,
So, but is it the fact, are we just older and my kid's never going to actually read a book. He uses an iPad.
Right.
So if and I hear people our age and older like, oh, I only read books. That's how it's done.
Right.
Or is that the same thing? Just because is the tube amp the books of is it like a book versus an iPad?
I guess. Because I love, don't get me wrong, I love the 108 speaker or even the 112 speaker like you have. The headrest speaker is great if you use any other FRFR speaker. Any of them are going to get the job done. But still, there's something about playing through an amp and a cab, but having the headrush as your front end, having it as the preamp, by having your actual head as like the power amp section running through a physical speaker. Like, there's still something about that setup that just it does it for me.
I think what I'm probably going to do within a year's time, I'm going to build a tube power amp.
Yeah.
And go head rush into tube power amp into speaker. Yeah. And then could you tell the difference in room? What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think you could tell a difference in room?
Like, like standing in the room and listening to either FRFR or a tube power amp?
No, tube power amp with the head rush as your preamp going into a actual guitar speaker, pretending you're a Marshall Plexi.
Oh yeah, if I was in a versus an actual. If you blindfolded me and said, "All right, I'm going to turn on my JCM 800 and play you some licks," it basically comes down to, what kind of band are you in? How much stuff do you have to lug around, and can you make it viable to where you can get things in and out on stage, and logistically make it work? Do you want to carry on a 4x12 cab and a power amp? Great. If not, then just get a headrush FRFR, which is way lighter and smaller, and just go that route. Or, if you're like, I would say you're in this camp, it's like if you're just a average musician that just wants to play at home,
which is probably most of music sales, I want to say.
You can have whatever setup you want. If you want a full stack with a Marshall head, go for it, because you're not going to be carrying that around to gigs.
Well, what about this too? Like, you've told me, I think you'd sent me a message once. You've had 30 amps.
Yes, I've had 30 different amps. I think 3 of those were probably solid state amps because I have a lot of Quilter. I've had some Quilter amps in the past.
So how much money have you wasted?
Oh, so much. I probably could have retired early from all the money I've spent.
So what's even put it this way too, and this is one reason why I have Head Rush. I'm going to keep it at least for another year, regardless of what happens, is because when you're somebody like me, how often you get to play a plexi or this amp or that amp? I think you could really try out your sound if you really wanted. Let's say you're a tube lover. You're like, I love tubes. That's the only way to go. You can buy a Head Rush for used $400 right now. Probably with the coronavirus, probably get one for $300.
Right.
You could buy that. You could try out all these amps and play all this stuff. And like kind of maybe see what you really like. If you really want that tube feel, you could do that and you could sell it. And you could buy like that tube amp and that speaker, and you kind of figure out what you want.
Yeah, and I've heard that argument from a friend of mine. His daughter was big into playing with other people, and and just getting over that hump of like learning what different effects sound like, and what they can do for you. I was like, yeah, just get a digital modeler, and because he got one of those M series, like the M13 from Line 6, because it did have all the different Line 6 effects in there, and he was like, all right, here, daughter, just use, play with this and figure out what you like. And then you can go buy the physical pedal after that, instead of wasting all this money buying hundreds of pedals and then realizing you don't like any of them,
I mean, they're so close, I think, with that sound like a real amp. I just think I don't know. I think it might be an update away, honestly. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think it's within 5% now, personally, especially after I did your tweaks.
Yeah, so, or even Rhett Scholl a few weeks ago on his channel, he talked about how to take your Kemper or your Helix and kind of do a few tweaks here and there to make it more in line with like what a tube amp would sound like. And
good, I saw that video.
I mean, it's like you said, it's like 5% difference. I mean, you're so much farther down the road than even you were like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago with this modeling stuff. That just sounds that good,
Yeah, man, I agree. I really appreciate your time and had a good chat today, man. And I'm sure you'll speak with much more musicians that have a little more authority than I do. But probably most of the sales are to people like me. So at least they're going to get a perspective from somebody who's not a professional or who's like not like a professional, an amazing musician. I think perspective from like the lay person is what you get from me.
Yeah, what I like about your story is like, yeah, you're a chef, but you also like tinkering with stuff. And there's a lot of people out there that just like to tinker and build their own stuff and, do the research, put in the time, and just have fun. Just have fun with it. So,
at the end of the day, you know what? Music has made me have fun. It especially right now with what the virus we're dealing with right now. A lot of people are reaching towards music. I think Fender even put out they're doing their free. I think I heard that today. They're doing like their free lessons now. So
yeah, like Fender Play or something.
Yeah. So I mean, I have fun with it, and it brings a smile to me. So it brings a smile to a lot of people. So keep doing what you're doing too, man. Like you've helped me out a lot. So I really really appreciate it, and keep on rocking, man.
Oh yeah. Well, I feel like I have the heart of a teacher, and doing this YouTube thing is my way of having thousands of students in different forms and facets and whatnot. So it's fun for me as well. I like doing it. Well, that was a very fun conversation with Wesley True, and just comes to show that even though you talk with different people of all walks of life, and obviously he's a chef, but he also likes tinkering with pedals, guitars, amps, all kinds of different stuff. So I love being a part of a community that we can all just kind of join in together and learn from each other. And that's really what this podcast is all about, just creating that community of confident musicians. So thanks guys for listening. Feel free to subscribe down below if you haven't done so already. And if you like the content that you see and hear on my channel, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click that bell icon to be notified every time I release new content. Stay tuned for next week when I release another podcast. And in the meantime, I am Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking.